Welcome. In this session we're going to cover importing your images into Lightroom. There are two different scenarios that you can deal with. Firstly, where your images are already on your computer, and secondly, where you are importing images from a camera or a memory card onto your computer. But right up front, you need to decide what you're going to do with the images that you import, where you're going to store them. Ideally, you want to have one folder that contains all your images, which are stored in subfolders of this main folder. On a Mac, the obvious place is under the Pictures folder. So once you've determined that, the first scenario to deal with here is photos that are already on your computer. Start in the Library module and go down to the bottom left and say Import. It'll then ask you for your source. In this case, it's a folder called Smokies, and it brings up the images in that folder. By default, Lightroom will import all those images, and you can uncheck the ones you don't want to bring in. As you import, at the top here you have a whole bunch of options that you can choose from. Copy as DNG. DNG stands for digital negative. If you want to learn more about DNG formats, Google DNG format and a whole bunch of information will come up. I usually leave my photos in RAW. DNG is a good idea, but personally I leave my photographs in the RAW format of my camera. You can copy the images to the new location, but that probably is not necessary if they're already on your computer. You could move them to the location if you want to tidy up your hard drive. Or you can just add them to the Lightroom library, leaving the original file where it is currently located. Now in the right panel, you have several options about what to do with the photographs as you bring them into the library. First thing is to determine the size of the preview. That's the preview that you see there. And here you can determine the size of the preview, whether it's minimal, 1:1, standard, and other options. I always leave them as minimal. It saves space and is much faster to work with. If you want, you can make a backup of the photograph as you import them. That's a great idea. If you have an external hard drive available when you import, you can make your archives as you do it, saving lots of time. Usually I'm on the road when I import, so I don't have the luxury of my external Grobo hard drive available. The next thing that you have to determine is whether to do anything to the images while you are importing them. You can apply develop settings. So for example, you can apply Lightroom presets. You might like black and white photographs and decide that you want to turn all your photographs into black and white as you import them. Another option which is incredibly useful is adding metadata. As a minimum, let's just go here and create a new one. As a minimum, you probably want to add copyright information. Your name, for example, and perhaps a website address and information like that enables people to find you and get hold of you about the use of your images. Keywords are also useful to add at this point. Obviously, if they apply to all the photographs, they have to be fairly generic. So for example, here I might say Smokies River. Then we come down here and we hit the import button. And you see at the top there, it gave me the import as it brought it in. So let's deal with scenario 2 now, importing photographs from a camera or a card reader. Begin as before by clicking on the import button. Just a note quickly, sometimes when you plug a new device into Lightroom, into your computer while Lightroom is open and they have images on it, Lightroom will go into this mode automatically, so you don't need to go through the import, clicking on the import button. Next, select the device, in this case my D7000, and it's brought the photographs up into the library catalog. Very quickly, pay attention to the options up here. You can choose whether you want to import just new photographs or all photographs. In this case, it's the same. You may continue to use a card, for example, until it is full, in which case you're importing multiple times from that card. By selecting new photos, you avoid having to go through the process of deselecting other photographs that you've already imported. At the top, you have to decide what you're going to do, but now you have only two options: copy as DNG and copy. On the right hand side, you have much of the same options as before, but a few more. For example, file renaming. File renaming is pretty self-explanatory. This gives you a lot of options about how to name your files as they come in. So if I check that box, I can choose shoot name, shoot sequence, all the different things that will help you identify your photographs better in the future. You have the same settings as before of what to do as you import them, how to apply them. You want to obviously choose your metadata at that point. Add keywords. I'm going to add Smokies, river, stream. And now we have to decide the destination. This is a very important part of what you're going to do in Lightroom. As before we said, you want to put them into the one folder, in this case the pictures folder. Once you choose that folder, you have the option of either putting them into a subfolder, and you can enter the name of that subfolder. So I would say, for example, Smokies. And in my case, I like to store my photographs by year. So I click on there, and you can see how it's put Smokies there in grayed out italics. So Lightroom's telling you exactly where your photographs are going to go. Just a quick note, some people like to organize their photographs by date. So you have this option here which says in one folder or by date. Just a heads up, choosing by date with Lightroom's creates a mess. Because what it does is it creates this whole subset of folders here which can become very, very difficult to deal with. So if you would like to store your photos by date, I would suggest you change this into one folder, and in your subfolder you specify the date yourself, giving you control over what you do. So we're now going to know that we're going to import these photographs into my pictures folder 2013, and it's going to go into Smokies, and I hit import, and there it goes and starts importing the photographs. What does Lightroom do with your photos? The simple answer is nothing weird. It puts them into the folder that you specified, and that's all it does to them, unless you have applied presets like the black and white filter. Some programs store them in a proprietary way that are only accessible by that program. Lightroom doesn't do that, which is really good news. You can access the files at any point in time using Explorer if you're on Windows, or Finder if you're in the Mac. So for example, I can come across here and go right click on Smokies and say show in Finder, and there are the photographs that I've just imported. And that's all it is to it. See you in the next session.